going to gain President Roosevelt a lot of favor among working class voters. They're going to vote Democrat. Democrats become the party of the little guy, the party of the worker, the party of the minimum wager, if that's even a word. Other things, and I'm so sorry that got cut off. The Tennessee Valley Authority. Tennessee Valley Authority, TVA. This was a huge project in the Tennessee Valley to create a number of dams and rivers and to create hydroelectric power to an impoverished region, and which by all accounts is still kind of impoverished. But this was probably, in terms of public utilities, one of the biggest undertakings that the U.S. government ever undertook, especially back in the day of the Great Depression and the New Deal. There were many or some that really liked this policy because, you know, if you're going to put people to work, you might as well put people to work building something that everybody's going to benefit from, right? And so the TVA was just another New Deal program designed to do that. Again, it's all about hydroelectric power. Kind of looks like California there. Kind of a mini California. California has like nearly 1,000 dams. No water, but we got 1,000 dams. All right, other things. The Agricultural Adjustment Act was another bill designed to help out farmers. If you remember, farmers were struggling already in the 1920s. And in the 30s, they had their problems exacerbated by this thing that the video was going to show you. It's called the Dust Bowl. And the Dust Bowl was a horrible situation for farmers. I noticed, oh, it says formers. No. Sorry. As you guys well know, I'm not perfect. This was a policy that was designed to help farmers by paying farmers to produce certain crops and destroy other crops. And the whole intent was to raise prices for those crops by creating scarcity. As you guys know in economics, if you make something scarce, the value of it goes up, right? Okay. Well, what the government did here is they said, hey, farmer, don't produce corn because what we want to do is we want to decrease the amount of corn that's produced, for example, so that the value of it goes up, so that when you sell it at the market, you're going to get more money. It's designed to help farmers out of their own kind of depression. Now, a lot of the farmers in the Dust Bowl in the middle of the United States ended up coming out to California, and most of them settled in Clovis. No, just playing though. We speak a little slower for you folks. I'm playing. No, but this was an interesting policy. It was later. Roosevelt always ran into problems sometimes with the administration of the policies. This is one of the policies that actually the Supreme Court found unconstitutional. So Roosevelt did not get to actually keep this policy on the books to help out farmers. Now, the lasting impact of this is that even today we still subsidize lots of farmers that produce certain things, right? And that's nothing against farmers, it's just the way that the government works. The government wants certain things produced, farmers benefit, maybe big farmers that produce certain things, especially corn, as we're developing different fuel sources like ethanol and things like that. Heck, in Brazil, they're subsidizing sugarcane farmers and they're almost completely on, their economy almost completely runs on sugarcane, ethanol, gasoline. They're pretty cool. Okay, whatever, maybe it's not cool. Man, I gotta fix this. Okay, the Civilian Conservation Corps. I'm gonna get rid of that. otherwise known as the CCC. The first C means civilian, and then the second thing is Civilian Conservation Corps. And this was something that was aimed at young men to go into rural areas and basically do anything needed in a rural area. Sometimes in a national park, you might have a trail that needed to be built, or a road that needed to be built, or to create ways for floodplains to drain out, or whatever that might be. But this was an interesting thing because this was something that affected mostly, it says young men, but let's just be honest, it was mostly young white men who got to do it because blacks were actually not permitted to enroll. That's a little dirty mark on the New Deal. The New Deal was not necessarily for all the people. It tended to overly benefit white males because of just simply the racism of the time. Those kind of policies would not fly today. But this was big. I mean, what they would do is you get maybe $30 a month mailed to you, okay? And you could spend like $5 of it, and you were forced to save almost $25 of it to put into the banks. So again, this is the government's attempt to try to get people off the streets, back to work, doing just various shovel-ready jobs. And this is just one of those things called the Civilian Conservation Corps. Now, where's the government getting all this money, though? Where do you think they're getting all this money to pay for these programs? From God? No.
Taxes?
Taxes, yes. During the New Deal, taxes on the wealthy will skyrocket. So Roosevelt is not the friend of like Richie Rich, okay? Or Monica Lowe, or whatever you want to call him from Monopoly. I just made that up. But like, you're looking at taxes in the 90% range. Can you believe that? Well, hey, if you're a millionaire, if you get taxed at 90%, hey, you still got 100,000 left, which is pretty awesome. Instead of 10 new cars, maybe you can buy one. Yeah. There's a couple other things to talk about. For the young people that were 16 or over, in urban areas, the government created jobs for them. So older men might have worked in the CCC, younger people might have worked in the National Youth Administration, which was basically, again, just a bunch of shovel-ready projects for kids to do. I say kids, let's just be honest and say young people. Okay, we're not talking about people before the age of 16. But that's obviously important because they can bring in money to the family. And this is a whole new way of thought of using the government to help people, right? Totally different than the laissez-faire idea. Republicans, I think at this point, are probably saying, oh, what are you doing, Mr. Roosevelt? Are you insane? This is crazy. It's kind of like Dr. Phil, what are you doing? One of the biggest, most important things the government does during the New Deal is it improves the situation of labor and unions. You have something called the Wagner Act, also known as the National Labor Relations Act, which for the very first time allows unions to be legal and to strike without the fear of getting pummeled by the government or killed or tortured by the government. Because if you remember, before the Progressive Era, there were lots of strikes and they were not legal. And so the government could use any means necessary to break up those strikes, including violence, including torture, like whatever the heck they wanted to do. But for the first time, unions get a big shot in the arm right here. And one of the things that happens is that unions grow in membership. The New Deal is a tremendously great time for all unions. Unions grow in membership, unions become more powerful, they start getting out there. After this law is passed in 1937, there's something like 4,000 strikes in that year alone because the unions are like, we are powerful, you know. And so like unions impact everything we do today as a country. Unions are of course behind the movement to increase the minimum wage as well. So again, these are all important New Deal programs. One of the most important ones, if not the most important ones to happen during the New Deal is called the Social Security Act. The Social Security Act is basically an effort to provide relief to the unemployed. So if you lose your job, there is what's called unemployment insurance, and that's all provided by this thing called the Social Security Act. It was in part designed to do that, but also designed to help out the elderly. If you were old back in the Great Depression, you better hope you have a family that can take care of you, because if not, you're gonna die poor, penniless, out in the street with your walker, and no one will care. Well, maybe some people might care. But this takes care of grandma, grandpa, Uncle Jim, who can't walk very well. It takes care of, it gives a retirement age, 65. Everybody that pays into Social Security usually will receive benefits once they retire. The only reason you're not going to receive benefits when you retire is for two reasons. Number one, because you made too much money. You might be LeBron James, and you make like $1 million in a single free throw. You know, you don't qualify for Social Security at that point if you're one of the wealthiest. You also know you're not going to get Social Security if the system runs out of money. There's some people that think the way that things are currently going in our country that it might be bankrupt by the year 2050. Like, there's not enough people working to support the amount of people retiring. And one of the problems is because, you know, it could be a lot of things, but one of the things is the government doesn't know how to do math, and they've overspent on themselves quite a bit over the past almost 30 years. But 25 cents out of every dollar goes to Social Security. 25 cents out of every dollar. Like, we spend nearly as much on Social Security as we do on defense for our country. Maybe this is national defense. I don't know. Crazy. This is a crazy cartoon. It just shows that Roosevelt was literally trying anything. It's called, of course, we may have to change remedies if we didn't get results. I mean, look at this. There's just a litany of bottles with all these different acronyms all over the place. And that's what Roosevelt's doing. Trying literally anything. Does it work? If you go back to the graph, yeah, it works for a little bit. It works for a little bit during his first term from 1932 to 1936. You've got a pretty nice little downward slope. I mean, you've cut unemployment significantly by 10 percentage points. Roosevelt gets elected again in a tremendous landslide. I think he gets like 523 electoral votes to 8. Like, the Republicans have no chance, kind of like the Lakers this year. And then basically, I can say that because I'm a fan. 1937, the unemployment rate goes up again. And Roosevelt kind of hits a few bumps in the road by 1937 during the second term. There seems to be a widespread belief that the New Deal is not doing enough. And so what Roosevelt starts doing is he starts enacting policies in the second New Deal. So when I talk about the New Deal, I'm talking about the whole thing. I just highlighted some of the main programs that some of those were in the second New Deal, some of those were in the first New Deal. It doesn't matter for the test or anything whether or not you know what things are in the first New Deal or the second New Deal. Just understand the big idea. But politically, he has to come up with a second New Deal and a whole bunch of programs to get that unemployment rate down. And that's pretty much what he does. Another thing that he's going to try to do